Circuit Court is back in session. Remain seated. Remain silent, please.
All right, Shotsie Buck-Hayes, please. This is the case of the Commonwealth of Virginia versus Shotsie Buck-Hayes. Is the Commonwealth ready?
Yes.
Defense ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
The record reflects the defense, Mr. Buck-Hayes is present in court with his attorneys, Mr. Lovato, Mr. Pack. The Commonwealth is represented by Mr. Newman. The defendant is before the court for sentencing on charges of aggravated malicious wounding and attempted first.
To that pre-sentence report.
I cannot do that, Mr. Lovato. I don't have any problem marking it as a defense exhibit, but there are specific things that can and cannot be part of pre-sentence report. The character reference letters are not part of pre-sentence report, so we'll make that defense exhibit 1.
Yes, sir.
Any additions or corrections to the pre-sentence report?
No.
All right, they'll be made part of the record.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You may proceed.
Good morning, sir. You are Lee Vogler, the victim's father in this case, correct?
Yes.
As such, we have talked, this is your opportunity to address the court as relates to what is called victim impact statement, telling the court how Lee being a victim of this case has affected what you have seen, affected both him and his family.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
The mental, physical toll it has taken on me to see what Lee has been through has been devastating. To see him when it first happened, to him almost dying, and being out of it for the first several weeks, the shock that he was set on fire, which I have seen a quick video of him literally on fire. Lee and I are very close, always have been. To this day, when I think of it all, what Lee and the family have been through, I shake my head slowly in disbelief. 63% of his body, with mainly third-degree burns, was and is horrible to me that someone could commit a heinous act that Hayes did. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around this. It's like a bad nightmare that replays over and over. To see Lee go through what he's been through just breaks my heart. But Lee is a fighter, very determined, and when he sets his mind on something, he usually succeeded. But this time, he was in the fight of his life. Every part of his body has been affected. Every part, one way or another. We all know God spared Lee's life, there's no doubt about that. And his wife Blair and his son Kingston and daughter Ava motivated Lee to fight, to get better. It played a major part in Lee's recovery. We have all been there for him since July 30 happened. I will never forget that date. It's the worst date of my life. Lee's mom, Rhonda, Carolyn, and I have been there in any way we could to help Lee make it back. Lee was able to come back in the spring to coach his Danville Middle School baseball team with his son Kingston on it. And I helped out. Coaching his team was a very motivating factor in Lee's healing mentally and physically. Lee was not able to put a baseball glove on his left hand the whole season to play catch. He was also not able to swing a bat to hit balls to the team. He was not able to teach the players how to slide. His handwriting was affected in making the lineup, with his hands trembling. His left arm and hand gave him the most trouble during the season, and neck mobility was noticeable. And I know this was very difficult for Lee to be physically limited, very frustrating for him, to say the least. I coached Lee from 8 years old throughout his life. Baseball was one of our common bonds we've always had. To see him limited with ball was very difficult to handle for me, and definitely him. But Lee persevered, and I was extremely proud of him for what he was able to accomplish with this team. And Lee returned to City Council the day he was released from the hospital. Though Lee still has more surgeries ahead of him, multiple surgeries, he has an incredible will to live his life to the fullest with his family. Through all the tough times for all of us since that horrible day, we have survived. To add on to my statement concerning the impact on our family over the heinous act, I've had a lot of anger issues since July 30. I still feel like it's a horrible nightmare, just hard to deal with. Until you see third-degree burns over 63% of Lee's body, you have no idea of what it's like to see him deal with it 24/7. People see him, his body in limited fashion. They don't know the extent of it, and you don't know exactly what it is unless you walk down the burn unit center in Chapel Hill and see what these people go through. It's devastating to watch. Thank God Lee had us as a support system to help him make it through this. A lot up there did not. But then I think Lee must deal with the mental and physical aspects the rest of his life. It just breaks my heart to remember Lee being so happy-go-lucky prior to the attack to now being a bit more introverted at times. I see at times some sadness in his eyes. He tries to hide it, but I'm his dad. I see it. He still has trouble tying his shoes, especially with his left hand, buttoning some types of shirts. He has to be extra careful when he is out in daylight, the sun. He has to use sun protective lotion, wear big hats and long sleeves. As a father and close friend to Lee, you just never imagine someone pouring gasoline, napalm on your child and nearly killing him. It's just been devastating to myself and our family. In closing, I would like to add just one thing I've been waiting to say for 11 months. You are a coward. That's all.
Anyone, sir?
No further questions for you, Judge.
No question, Chair.
Thank you, sir. You can step down.
Rhonda Vogler?
Do solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. You may be seated.
Rhonda Vogler? You're Lee's mother, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Again, this is your opportunity as relates to being a family member, being Lee's mother, to explain how Lee being a victim of this crime has affected both him and you and the family. Okay?
From the moment my son Lee was born, he was my world, my precious gift from God. On July 30th, 2025, he tried to steal my world from me. I'm forever grateful to God for sparing Lee's life that day. But you did steal future memories from him and our family that he's no longer physically able to do. You watch your child as a baby learn to walk and feed themselves. As a mother, you shouldn't have to relive that when they're 38. Because of what you did, I had to watch my son struggle to relearn to feed himself, comb his hair, brush his teeth, and do all of his regular daily activities. Even now, he still struggles to do many of them. Also watching him first stand on his own and finally take his first steps. Watching the pain he felt every minute he battled to do these things broke my heart over and over again. When I got the call, it was like I stopped breathing and my heart stopped beating. The call a mother should never get. First, you're told your son has been hurt. Then someone tried to kill your son. Then something you would never imagine to hear about anyone, especially your child. That you set Lee on fire and tried to burn him to death. As soon as I heard what happened to Lee, I prayed and asked God for two things. Please save my son, and please give me peace. Without that peace, I never would have made it through this. One thing a mother always wants for her child is the ability to protect them and keep them safe always. No matter if they're babies or adults. That day you took that away from me. You took that away from a mother because I couldn't protect my child from you. Beginning July 30th, for over a month, Kingston and Ava were without their dad, their mom, and their me. The three people that were always there and took care of them. Blair and I were with Lee 24/7 in the burn ICU. But our hearts were torn because we weren't there with Kingston and Ava. We switched back and forth, sleeping in a chair beside Lee or in a chair in the ICU waiting room. The burn ICU became home for the three of us. Lee and I both missed the first day of second grade for Ava and moving to a new school and beginning middle school for Kingston. Missing being with Kingston on his 11th birthday. Things we can never get back. Things none of us ever missed and wouldn't have missed if it weren't for you. I'll never forget the fear that my grandson Kingston felt when you were sent from the jail here to be evaluated. He was so afraid that you would escape and come and hurt him and his family. He didn't feel safe until he knew you were back in a cell in jail. No child should ever feel that fear. Hearing a knock on a door will never be the same for Lee. Passing a medical helicopter at the helipad beside GW, or seeing one flying in the sky will never stop bringing tears to my eyes or pain in my heart. Every time I see a fire, or every time I hear the word fire, even in a song, I cringe. Because every time those things happen, it will bring back the trauma of July 30th. Every day I wake up praying that it was all a nightmare and that my baby boy wasn't tortured and burned and scarred for life. And I lay there and I cry, realizing that it is true. The calendar in my bedroom is still on July 2025 because my life changed and ended in a way then. I haven't been able to turn the page beyond that date, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to. The last time I was in this courtroom, we watched a picture of my son on fire, your arrest, and your interview with the police. I watched you looking at this screen. Your face, your expression, and your body language. Hoping and praying just to see a little sign of remorse for what you had done to Lee and our family. Not only didn't I see any remorse, watching how calm and emotionless you were while telling the police in the interview exactly what you did to Lee. And when you were sitting there watching all of it on the screen, made me physically sick. The only feelings and emotions I felt from you that day were cruelty, inhumanity, and evil. The pain, fear, and trauma you've caused our family isn't temporary. It's lifelong. What you did to Lee has become a living hell for my son, for his children, and for our family. I pray that for the rest of your life, you will feel at least a little piece of the hell and trauma that you caused us. Most of all, I pray that every day of your life, whether you're asleep or you're awake, the faces of his children, my grandchildren, these children, should be what you see. While sitting beside Lee's hospital bed, for weeks all I wanted to do was to hug my son. But I couldn't because of all the tubes, wires, and machines hooked up to him. Most of all, I couldn't because his burns were so extreme I couldn't touch him. He wasn't awake or able to communicate yet. So throughout the days and nights, I would hold on to his big toe and tell him, "Until I can hug you, son, I'm holding your toe, and that's me, that's Mom hugging you. Mom loves you, son, and God's got you." Night and day, I watched the monitors and I listened to the constant alarms going off, holding my breath and praying every time his blood pressure or his oxygen levels became almost non-existent. Each time wondering if that was the last breath that my son was going to take. Every day, watching my child suffer unimaginable and unbearable pain. As the medical staff cleaned and did wound care on the burns, covering almost all of his body. Looking at my child laying there with burns that were not just a layer of skin gone, but deep layers of his body missing. Those are sights and sounds that I'll never be able to forget. Your Honor, I thank you and the court for allowing me to share just a small piece of the pain that I and my family are feeling.
No further questions, Judge? No question, Judge.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, I'm gonna call Tiffany Blair Vogler.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good morning, ma'am. You're Tiffany Vogler, but you go by Blair, correct? You are Lee's wife?
Yes.
And as such, this is now your opportunity also to tell the court how your husband being a victim of this crime has affected, what you have seen affected him and both you and your family.
Your Honor, my name is Tiffany Blair Vogler. I'm Lee Vogler's wife and the mother of our two children, Kingston and Ava. Before this attack, we were an ordinary family. We had our worries, school schedules, sports practices, work deadlines, and family vacations. We had plans for our future. We had traditions, and we had a sense of safety and security that was taken from us. On the day my husband was attacked, our lives were changed forever. I stood in a hospital wondering if my husband was going to survive. I had to look at my children and prepare for the possibility that they may grow up without a father. No wife or mother should ever have to have those thoughts, and no child should ever have to live with that fear. 1 week after the attack, our children started a new school year. Their father was intubated in the burn ICU. It was Kingston's first day of 6th grade and his first day of middle school. It was Ava's first day of 2nd grade. Traditionally, Lee and I take them to school together on their first day, and Lee always picks them up himself afterwards. It's a tradition that means a lot to us and to the kids. Instead, the children walked into the school year with their father fighting for his life in the burn unit. Lee was also intubated on Kingston's 11th birthday. So instead of celebrating with his father, Kingston had to spend the birthday wondering if his dad was going to survive. Those are moments that we can never get back. The impact on our children has been profound. They have watched their father endure unimaginable pain. They've seen scars no child should ever have to see. They've experienced fear, anxiety, uncertainty, trauma. Both Kingston and Ava have required counseling to help process what happened. Even today, they continue to worry about their father's health, his surgeries, his pain, and his future. Personally, I struggle with anxiety, sleeplessness, intrusive thoughts, and the persistent fear for the safety of my family. The public nature of this crime made it more difficult. But with the public sought headlines and entertainment, our family was living a nightmare. Many people saw a news story, but we lived a reality. So the cameras eventually leave and the headlines stop, but our family still wakes up every day with the consequences of what happened. For us, the crime didn't end with that. It follows us every single day. I was unable to work for approximately 6 months while managing my mental health, the kids, and caring for Lee. I missed over 100 days of work beyond my leave. Since Lee's discharge from the hospital, I've become much more than a wife. I've become a caregiver, a scheduler, an advocate, a driver, and a coordinator for every aspect of recovery while continuing to care for our children, maintain our house. To date, we've had more than 50 outpatient appointments and traveled over 5,000 miles back and forth for care. Our lives revolve around surgeries and therapy appointments, rehabilitation, recovery periods, and uncertainty about what comes next. Even simple family activities require planning around pain and fatigue and temperature and sun exposure and physical limitations. The crime also affected my own future. I was forced to withdraw from my graduate certificate program in healthcare data analytics with only 3 weeks remaining because I could no longer balance school and work and caregiving and emotional weight and all the things. Financially, the impact has been substantial and ongoing. We've incurred lost wages, travel expenses, lodging, meals, parking, counseling, medical expenses. We continue to spend money every month on skincare products and sunscreen and compression garments and protective clothing that's required because of Lee's injuries. But what hurts the most cannot be measured in dollars. What hurts the most is knowing that our family will never return to the lives that we had before. We are grateful that Lee survived, and we are grateful for every milestone in his recovery. But survival is not the same as being unharmed. Lee faces ongoing surgeries, permanent scarring, nerve damage, limited function in his shoulders, neck, and left hand, chronic pain, and years of rehabilitation. Every day he must work to regain abilities that we all take for granted. Every surgery is a reminder. Every therapy appointment is a reminder. Every scar is a reminder. Every anxious question from our children is a reminder. The defendant's actions lasted for only minutes. The consequences will carry with us for the rest of our lives. My husband carries the scars. Our children carry the memories. And our family carries the weight of what happened every single day. We cannot get back birthdays and milestones, traditions, opportunities, security, and the peace that was taken from us. I respectfully ask the court to fully consider the lifelong impact this crime has had on my husband, my children, and our family when determining appropriate sentencing. Thank you.
Ma'am, I don't think anybody disputes all the things you've gone through, and I apologize for all that. I just want to ask you a few things here. First, before this happened, were you aware of his mental health issues?
Whose mental health issues?
Shotsie's, I apologize. Were you aware that he had been hospitalized for mental health stuff before this?
I was aware that he had been hospitalized. Yes.
Okay. Now, and before this, had you spent any time with Mr. Buck-Hayes?
Yes. I maybe seen him about 5 or 6 times, something like that.
Now, I mean, he's obviously pled guilty to this. He's spared us a trial here and accepted responsibility, but you knew him before this. Were you also aware of the affair going on?
Judge, I don't think that was relevant.
How's that relevant to the question of victim impact, Mr. Lovato?
Judge, how it affected her in the entirety. There's much more than just this event going on, so I'm just trying to figure out the impact of the whole scenario.
I'm going to sustain that motion.
Yes, sir. When hanging out with, or spending time with Mr. Buck-Hayes, had you guys had any issues? I mean, did you, the time that you did spend together, was it decent times? Was this something that, you said you spent 5 or 6 times with him, so there wasn't any issues when you were hanging out? There's no bad blood or anything when you guys were hanging out?
Between Shotsie and myself?
Yes.
There was no bad blood.
No other questions?
I have no problem with that.
Thank you, ma'am. You can sit down.
Call calls Lee Vogler.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Good morning, sir. I believe the full name is actually Jack Lee Vogler, but you go by Lee, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're the victim of this case.
Yes, sir.
This is your opportunity to tell the court how, as a victim of this case, this has both affected you and your family.
My name is Lee Vogler. I'm the husband of Blair Vogler and the father of our 2 children, Kingston and Ava. On July 30th, 2025, I was ambushed and violently attacked at my place of employment with no warning by someone I had not seen or spoken to in roughly 8 months. I am here today to speak about the emotional, physical, and financial consequences that my family and I continue to face as a direct result of that attack. When you look at the physical toll, it is hard to comprehend until you live it. I suffered 3rd-degree burns to 60% of my body, my chest, most of my left arm, my back, my neck, my face, and both of my hands. Parts of my ears were essentially melted away. The recovery has been grueling. Several skin graft surgeries, laser surgeries, and a reality where I know more surgeries await me in the years ahead. I suffered severe nerve damage that required months of intense physical therapy. I had significant damage to my lungs, which still affects how I breathe and speak. I spent nearly a month in a coma at the burn intensive care unit, battling infections in 90% of my body. At that time, my survival seemed almost impossible. Today, the thick scarring from those grafts causes severe stiffness and tightness, restricting my mobility. I live with constant shooting pain and numbness in my extremities. But the hardest part is the loss of normalcy. I still struggle to tie my own shoes, button my own shirt, or even shave my face. For months, I couldn't dress myself at all. The nerve damage makes simple things, like turning a doorknob, typing, or popping open a can, a struggle. Perhaps most painful is the loss of connection with my children. I couldn't play catch with my son for months. Even now, it's difficult. I can't lift my arms fully, which limits my ability to play with my daughter. My daughter was only 7 years old when this happened. It is already difficult for her to remember who I was before this attack. I have been, and they have been, robbed of a life where I could be the father they deserve, a father with full functionality. Beyond the physical, the psychological trauma is profound. I have nightmares constantly, waking up feeling like I am back in the flames. When someone knocks on a door, I jump. When I see my attacker's face on social media, I am instantly transported back to that moment of the ambush. All of this put together is a pain I would not wish on my worst enemy. My children have had to see counselors to cope with this, and I've required professional help and medication just to manage the anxiety. Then there's the economic burden. For 6 months after the attack, neither my wife nor I could work. As a primarily commission-based worker, for me, that meant a large portion of our income vanished. When I finally returned, I had to fight to acclimate physically and mentally. Even now, my reduced typing efficiency impacts my ability to earn. Between the dozens of out-of-town medical trips, the fuel costs, the need to replace our vehicle, and the ongoing cost of medications, sunscreen, and specialty clothing, the financial strain on our family has been immense. Your Honor, every facet of our existence, emotional, physical, and financial, has been permanently altered. We face new obstacles every single day as we grapple with the fallout of this trauma. These repercussions will follow us for years to come. My attacker is an evil, violent individual. He knew exactly what he was doing. He had many opportunities to not follow through with it. He not only tried to kill me, he tried to do it in the most inhumane way possible. And if not for the grace of God, an incredible medical team at UNC, and my sheer will to live, you all would be discussing a murder charge today. I ask that he be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law, so he never again has the opportunity to do to someone else what he did to me. Thank you.
No further questions.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
That's the extent of the evidence from Commonwealth Justice.
All right. Evidence on behalf of Mr. Buck-Hayes.
Your Honor, I would call Dr. Megan Cockbill.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
If you would, please state your name for the court and for the record.
Megan Elizabeth Cogwell.
And how are you currently employed?
I am a assistant medical director and psychiatrist at Central State Hospital.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to designate her as a expert witness in the field of psychiatric medical care, Your Honor.
Any objection? No objection. All right, you may examine as such.
Thank you, ma'am. And have you been previously admitted as an expert, ma'am?
No.
Okay. And what is the regular component of your professional practice?
So I work currently in snack security at Central State.
Yeah, and did you have an opportunity to see Mr. Shotsie Buck-Hayes?
Yes.
Okay. And how many times did you observe him?
Probably he was, I think I took over his care on August 5th. He was with us from August 1st to 18th. I probably saw him at least 10 times.
Okay. And when you say August 5th, I assume you're talking August 5th of 2025?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So that was after the date of offense in this particular incident, correct? All right. And what was the nature of your involvement with him?
So I was his primary psychiatrist or psychiatric attending. He had been admitted to Central State under a forensic TDO on August 1st,
Okay.
2025.
And what mental health conditions, if any, did you observe with Mr. Buck-Hayes?
So he was admitted with acute suicidality, and we ultimately diagnosed him with primary diagnosis of bipolar I disorder, most recent episode manic and likely mixed, with secondary diagnoses of personality disorder, most likely borderline personality disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder with dissociative episodes.
Okay. And you said, what was the last thing that you just said, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Dissociative episodes.
Okay, yeah, but the,
Oh, I'm sorry, PTSD or
Right.
post-traumatic stress disorder.
all right. So PTSD with dissociative episodes, is that correct?
Yes.
If you would, tell the court what how those would display in someone like Mr. Buck-Hayes.
So bipolar I disorder is an affective disorder, which means it's a disorder of mood and energy. In order to be diagnosed with bipolar I, individuals must have had at least one manic episode. Manic episode is a period of at least 7 days of elevated energy or mood. And individuals they can present with very irritable affects. So even though we say elevated mood, a lot of times we think of euphoric, it can be very irritable. Labile affects are going from tearful to angry very quickly, not requiring very much sleep. So that was one symptom of the irritability, the insomnia. He had not been sleeping more than like 3 or 4 hours a night for quite some time. Hyperverbal, rapid speech, so speaking a lot very quickly, racing thoughts. And then the mixed episode part of that would be that along with the mania, the individual has at least 3 symptoms of depression, and that's a very miserable state for somebody to be in because you have all this energy, but you feel very bad. So depressed mood, suicidal thoughts, feelings or thoughts of worthlessness, hopelessness. Those are the major depressive symptoms I can think of offhand that you describe.
How does the bipolar I and the PTSD with dissociative episodes, how does that interplay affect someone like Mr. Buck-Hayes?
So it's complicated. I will also say there's a lot of overlap between the borderline and PTSD, and there's overlap between all of these and bipolar. Bipolar is episodic, and it is technically more like a disease. And so when someone is having a bipolar episode, other disorders such as PTSD, it's not uncommon for those symptoms to flare as well. The other thing is that during manic episodes, especially individuals with bipolar disorder can be particularly impulsive. And so if an individual was to go into a angry, impulsive state along with the PTSD, they could have experienced a dissociative episode, which is basically where someone is. It can range from just feeling like you're outside your body watching yourself to actually losing track of time. Kind of a classic example is like when we drive somewhere and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? That's like an example of a mini dissociative episode.
Okay. And you said that it occurs sometimes in an impulsive manner, is that correct? Okay. And now, you were able to review his history, his psychiatric history, correct? Was he, when you saw him, were these some of the first times he was diagnosed with some of these issues?
Yes,
Because I think he had bipolar, that diagnosis was historic, correct?
yes.
Okay. So what were the new diagnoses that you came up with in the August timeframe of 2025?
So, if I recall correctly, the borderline had also been reported, and we observed symptoms of that, do you want me to talk about the symptoms?
Sure, please.
So, pattern of intense, unstable relationships. Again, you see that affective instability, but unlike mania or bipolar, where you see that over weeks to months, in borderline, you see that mood instability from minutes to hours, days, so it's much shorter time. So you can imagine how the two of those, bipolar and borderline can superimpose on each other would really present with some extreme mood fluctuations. So mood fluctuations, relationship instability, chronic feelings of emptiness, problems with self-image. These are some of and you also could have periods of dissociation with borderline.
And these borderline individuals, how do they respond to rapid changes in their home life and their personal life, things of that nature?
Usually not. It's harder on them than it would be for someone without borderline.
Do they require stability to remain a functional member of society?
That helps a lot, yes.
All right, and now, when you first saw him, before the subsequent diagnosis, was he medicated in any way that, to your knowledge?
So my understanding is he had been hospitalized, if I recall, in March of 2025 and had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and started on Depakote, which is a mood stabilizer, Zyprexa, which is an antipsychotic that's also FDA approved for treatment of bipolar disorder, as well as Lexapro, which is an antidepressant, which was a concern.
Yeah, so, and I was just gonna ask you that. So with the subsequent diagnosis, would some of those medications interplay with the subsequent diagnosis that weren't diagnosed at the time he was prescribed them?
Well, even, I hate to criticize what somebody else prescribed, but even with the bipolar diagnosis, it's common standard of practice really, so Lexapro is an SSRI or antidepressant. Not to say we don't prescribe those in bipolar disorder, but we really try not to because it's well known that they can trigger manic episodes or actually destabilize someone's bipolar disorder.
So he's diagnosed with bipolar disorder and all these issues in March of 2025, correct?
Yes,
And then he's prescribed Lexapro, correct?
yes,
And then you said that some of the times with the Lexapro, they could cause the episodes to be worse, correct?
yes.
Right. Would they cause the dissociation to be worse in any way?
I'm not sure, I can't say.
But would certainly lower inhibitions as far as his actions,
Yes,
correct?
yes, right.
All right. And how would, basically, if you could describe to the court how being on the Lexapro and aggravating the bipolar issue without being diagnosed with the other stuff, what does that normally look like in a person, such as Shotsie Buck-Hayes?
Well, not sleeping, or not sleeping as much as one would usually, or severe mood swings, irritability, increased impulsivity, increased reckless behavior. So it would really trigger all those manic symptoms.
Okay, all right. So in your opinion, it's not that just Mr. Buck-Hayes suffers from one mental illness, but several,
Yes.
And what steps did you take in when you did the subsequent diagnosis to regulate him and get him stable?
So, we started him on a different mood stabilizer, lithium, and we continued Zyprexa, the antipsychotic. Those were the initial 2 meds. He responded very well to lithium. Because of ongoing depressive symptoms, we did also add a second mood stabilizer, Lamictal, which is FDA approved for the treatment of bipolar depression. While he was at Central State, we also offered a sleep aid, Devigo. They don't use that in the jail, so we couldn't continue it, but that helped him get some sleep while he was there. And then we discharged him on hydroxyzine, which is an anticholinergic medication similar to Benadryl, to take for sleep when he was in jail.
Okay. And have you been able to see him after that in any way? Okay. So you don't know what the process or ongoing process
Not
is?
since the 18th.
Okay. And this time in which he had the Lexapro prior to him coming into your care, I assume other relevant social factors would also affect his behavior at that time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So when I said housing stability, if housing stability was an issue, that certainly would be a factor, correct? What about if his marriage was in trouble or going through a divorce? Would that have an effect?
Yes. And things like that, those psychosocial stressors, we call them, would really trigger that borderline disorder and those symptoms to flare up.
So when you say that would really trigger that borderline issue and those symptoms would flare up, you mentioned earlier that borderline issue also had the dissociative state with it, or disassociation. So it would aggravate that as well, correct?
Yes.
And so what you could have is somebody that's being medicated for one thing and kind of, I wouldn't say misdiagnosed, but it wasn't a full diagnosis, correct?
Correct.
Exacerbating his mental health issues, correct? And then, in your opinion, could that lead to an episode like this, where we have in this particular case?
She doesn't object to that. I don't think she can.
I don't think she can speculate quite that far, Mr. Bennett.
Certainly. I'll withdraw that question, Your Honor, if I may, and re-ask.
Okay.
What, if anything, would all of those factors that I just discussed with you, how would that play out for Mr. Buck-Hayes?
I can't say exactly. What I can say is that with the manic symptoms that we talked about, if someone at the same time has a severe exacerbation of borderline personality disorder, which is part of what I think happened. So the term borderline comes from the borderline of neuroses and psychoses. And so under states of extreme stress, as individuals along with dissociation can experience things like paranoia. And so that, along with the mania, could very likely lead to someone acting in an extreme manner in a way they wouldn't normally act.
Now, ma'am, you've heard the term malingering, correct?
Yes.
All right. What is that?
So malingering is feigning symptoms.
Basically, just faking symptoms,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
Did you observe any of that type of behavior from Mr. Buck-Hayes?
None. And that's one thing that, I won't say we specialize in at Central State, but as most of we're the only max security psychiatric hospital, state hospital in Virginia. So we get a lot of patients who have serious charges, a lot of whom don't want to be incarcerated or don't want to be charged. So we see a lot of malingering. And it is something that we are trained to discern, and nobody ever, I think on the admission note, somebody put it as a rule out, just because we always keep an eye out for that, but at no point was it ever suspected.
Not even suspected, not even a concern?
No.
Those are all my questions. Please answer any questions the Commonwealth Code Court may have.
Oh, Doctor, how you do that?
Okay.
In addition, were you provided with any documentation as relates to the case, police reports, defendant statements, anything like that?
No.
All right, were you aware the defendant specifically told the police officers, yes, I went there specifically with the intent to kill Lee Vogler?
Yes,
All right. Nothing in your diagnosis indicates that he couldn't form that specific intent to kill someone, correct?
Your Honor, I would object, the same objection that Mr. Newman had, kind of outside that scope. We're here for sentencing judgment.
I'll sustain that objection. I think it's proper question.
can you ask it one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes.
He's a
Oh,
state.
he says, oh,
I
I'm sorry.
sustain it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You asked. Nothing in speaking with Mr. Let me ask you this. You indicate, were you aware that he gave a confession?
Yes, yes.
And even though you see this diagnosis in him as relates to his bipolar and whatnot, you did not form any opinion as an expert that he could not commit this crime?
Judge, I would object to the same objection as before.
Well, Judge, I mean,
No, I think that's a little different. I'm gonna allow her to answer that question.
What, can you ask one more, like, I'm
sure,
sorry.
in other words, talk about dissociation and all this in reference, there's nothing in reference to your diagnosis of him indicating that he could not commit this crime.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Nothing further from
Thank
Ms.
you,
Whitlow.
Doctor. You may sit down. Does she need to remain?
I ask that she be released if we make, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No.
Thank you, Doctor. Have a safe drive back to Petersburg.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Your Honor, call Kenneth Cruz.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated.
Sir, if you would, please state your name for the court and for the record.
Kenneth Marshall Cruz.
Okay. And how are you related in this case to any of the parties?
Shotsie was married to my granddaughter, Mary Alice.
Okay, all right. And so, is that how you came to know Shotsie Buck-Hayes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And how long have you known him?
I think I met Shotsie in 2019 when Mary Alice came back from college.
And you say came back from college. Where was she in college at?
She was in college in England. Excellent.
So she was in college in England. How long was she out there?
She was over there 4 years, I think.
Okay. And you're fully aware of the incident in this matter, correct? All right. And prior to the incident, what kind of person have you observed Mr. Buck-Hayes to be?
Well, everybody loved Shotsie. I mean, he was just a great guy, you know, real athletic, and we had good times together. I just, you know, I love the guy.
And did you ever observe him being like disrespectful to any of his family members?
No, no.
Did you ever observe him assisting or helping family members or members within within your family?
Yeah, he always wanted to help everybody.
And was he able to work when he first came over here?
What do you mean, able, physically able?
Oh, well, yeah, first physically able, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. What about financially or legally able to work?
Well, no, he didn't have anything. I mean, he lived with Mary Alice's parents, you know, and they clothed him and fed him and housed him until you know, he was able to get a job. And, I don't know how that system works, you know, they can green card or whatever, and he got a job, and you know, from what they were talking, like, you know, everybody that he worked with loved him, you know, he was a great guy. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Well, and so you previously said you're Mary Alice's grandfather, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Are you close with your granddaughter as well?
Oh, yeah, I love him.
Okay. And now, you say that Mr. Buck-Hayes lived with Mary Alice's parents, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, did he have anyone from his family over here in the United States?
No, his mother and brother came over here, for the wedding when they got married.
When was that, man, sir?
Now, I don't know exactly when it was, it's something like, I think, back in maybe 24,
Okay. 2024 or something like that?
something like that, yeah.
Okay. But other than his mother and brother coming over here, he didn't have any family here, correct?
No,
All right. Did you have regular conversations with Shotsie?
yes,
Okay. How would that occur, sir?
pardon me,
How would that occur? He come to your house, you go to his house? How
Well-
would that work?
both.
Okay.
We would go over and visit them, and sometimes he would come to our house, and when he did, Mary Alice would be with him, and I owned land, they wanted to walk in the woods and see things, and so we would do that and just have a really enjoyable time.
Did you, at some point, prior to this incident, did you notice a change in Shotsie?
No,
Right. Well, prior to the incident that we're here for, was there an issue maybe between Mary Alice and Shotsie that you noticed a change?
yes.
Okay. What happened?
Well, Shotsie and Mary Alice have been hanging out with the Voglers, and so Shotsie told me.
Objection, Judge, hearsay.
Can you tell us what he said, sir?
Sir, based on, so he made a statement to you, correct? And based on that statement, what was his appearance and demeanor at that time?
Well, I mean, he was upset. I don't know what I'm allowed to say here, but, I think the truth should be told.
Sir, there are rules of evidence, and the court runs by rules of evidence. So just answer the questions as best you can, and I'll make a decision whether it complies with the rules of evidence.
Yes, sir.
And when you, I guess what I'm asking you is once that happened, okay, this change, once that happened, how did Shotsie appear to you? What was his physical appearance and demeanor?
Well, I didn't see any change in his physical aspects of him, but, he was emotionally upset, because, his marriage was on the line.
Okay. And how long before the incident that we're here for today, how long before that did you first notice that?
I don't know. I mean,
Months,
it
weeks?
wasn't very long.
Okay.
It was, after Mary Alice left and got an apartment on her own.
Then you noticed obviously a change in Shotsie. Did he come visit you often after that?
No, not often, but we talked a lot on the phone.
Okay. And through those conversations, was he distraught?
Yes.
How so?
Well, he told me, he said he loved Mary Alice and he didn't want to lose her. And he kept trying to call her, and she wouldn't answer his calls. And so, that got him really upset because he was trying to save his marriage.
And this was a persistent thing between you and Shotsie, correct? Now, have you spoken to Shotsie since he's been incarcerated?
Yes,
Okay. And has he expressed remorse for what happened?
yes. He told me he was really sorry for what he had done, and he said he wished he hadn't done it, but, he just.
Objection, Judge.
Sustained.
Sir, those are all my questions. Please answer any questions the counsel or the court may have.
No questions from the gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. You may step down.
Donald Cosner, Your Honor.
Donald Cosner.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir, state your name for the record, please.
Donald William Cosner,
What do you go by?
Bill.
All right. So, Bill, how do you know Mr. Shotsie Buck-Hayes?
We work together,
All right, where did you all work together?
Midtown Market.
You said Midtown Market? All right, now, did you spend a lot of time with Mr. Buck-Hayes?
Yes,
All right, and in your opinion, you know, well, let me back that up. So, in your dealings with Mr. Buck-Hayes, you know, did you see at some point a decline in his demeanor?
yes.
Okay, can you tell the court a little bit about that?
Well, I seen the decline when he was having troubles with his marriage, and then I seen an incline. Because the month prior to all this, he was doing really well, had a new job, really enjoyed what he was doing. But there was episodes where days he was dealing with his wife, that he'd seem dissociated and, hard to talk to, almost like talking to a wall almost. But he would come back and we would talk things, that thing.
Now, before that, what was his personality like before that happened? What kind of person was he to be around all the time?
Really good person, really nice, kind, willing to help anybody, hard worker, always just trying to please.
So, did he do a good job at work?
Oh, yes, yeah, very good.
Now, have you spoke with him since he's been locked up for this?
Yeah.
All right, so in those speakings, do you think he has showed remorse and that he's sorry?
Yes.
Judge, I'll object, he can't testify to what he's saying.
Sustained.
I'll rephrase your honor. In speaking with him since he's been locked up, have you seen a change in Shotsie?
Well, yeah, of course, he's detained, so he's gonna be a different person.
All right. Now,
Not in good spirits, I mean, not being negative, but just being maybe depressed.
I understand. So that's all the questions I have for you.
No questions for the gentleman.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, I would call Josiah Buck.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir, state your name for the record.
Josiah Joseph Buck.
All right. Josiah, how do you know Shotsie?
Shotsie's my brother.
All right, now, growing up with Shotsie, what was it like growing up with him?
Well, growing up, like, say, typically we had, like, a fairly standard sibling sort of relationship. Like, we had our disagreements, but we always remained close. I think around the age of 13, Shotsie moved out. So through those years, we didn't spend a whole lot of time together, but when we did, I always found it was quality time. He taught me a lot. We learned a lot of things together, like bushcraft, things like that. Yeah, I mean.
Did you, now he's your older brother?
Yeah, older brother by 3 years.
All right, now, I don't want to assume anything, but did you look up to him?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There was a lot of things that he did, especially with building relationships with people and things like that. I always aspired to be like that in that respect, of being able to just. He was always quite outgoing, and I feel like I was a lot more introverted, and I wanted to take those qualities and take on those qualities and be a bit more like that.
Absolutely. Now, during the COVID COVID time, did you spend more time with him?
Yeah, he lived with us. He moved back in during that time. So,
And
yeah.
how did that period go?
It was great. Again, like before that happened, we didn't spend a whole lot of time together, so it was refreshing for him to move back in with us. And we did all sorts together. We went out for long walks. We trained together. We played a lot of music. Yeah, we had a much better bond. It was really nice, pleasant, really great time.
Was Shotsie a person that you told me about a story? Do you remember the story I'm referring to?
I believe, yeah.
Right.
So,
What happened that day on the street?
So I think it was my 19th birthday, and we were on a night out, and I remember Shotsie pointing out that there was a woman across the street who was supposedly what he believes it was a woman who was in some sort of trouble, maybe some sort of sexual assault or something like that.
Okay.
I didn't see it personally, so when he pointed it out, he was like, you know, we should go over there, we need to help that woman. Because I didn't see it, I'm ashamed to say I was a bit dismissive. I was like, you know, it's none of our business, it's best that we stay out of it, like, just to stay out of trouble kind of thing, like we don't know who these people are. But, you know, we spoke about it later on, and actually, I regret reacting in that way, and it taught me, and he demonstrated to me that, you know, sometimes it's important to look out for people you don't even know, and you know, that really stuck with me from that day on.
In you growing up with Shotsie, is that the kind of person you remember him to be?
Always, he went above and beyond for a lot of people. Yeah.
Now, you know, in that time of COVID, when you're spending a lot of time with him, was he usually in a good mood, a bad mood? Did you see any kind of decline then?
During COVID?
Yes.
I feel like that was probably, I feel like we were all at a high really. I think he was probably at his best, I'd say.
Was there a time that after COVID, or at any point there, did you see him start to decline and go not from his best anymore?
Again, I feel like between then and up to the point that he moved here and got married and all that, it was up and up. It always seemed like it was getting better. When we went over to visit, I was very pleased to see that there were so many people that had so many good things to say about him. So it was a shock when things started to take a decline. And you know,
Well, when you say things started taking decline, how did they take a decline?
I think it was just as Shotsie was trying to save his marriage with things that was going on between him and Mary
So
Alice.
did he stop communicating with you?
Yeah, it was much harder to communicate. We didn't talk as much at all on the phone, and when we did, he often sounded quite distressed, and it was difficult because we were in another country. There was only so much I could do.
Thank you, sir. Answer any questions, comments?
No question. Thank you, sir.
Call Naomi Buck.
Do solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Speak clearly. Ma'am, if you would, please state your name for the court.
My name is Naomi Evelyn Buck.
All right. And how are you related to Shotsie?
I'm the mother of Shotsie Buck. He's my son.
Okay. And how was Shotsie growing up?
Generally, Shotsie could be quite excitable, but that could be fun. He was a very active child, even from a very young age. He was very quick, he was bright. He was reading early. He's my gift from God. Although we had difficult circumstance, because I'm a single parent, I haven't been with Shotsie's father since Joe was a year and a half.
You say since Josiah was a year and a half.
Josiah was a year and a half, so Shotsie was about 5 when I had relationship breakdown.
And you were a single parent from the time he was 5, correct?
Yes.
How much contact did he have with his father?
Rarely any. Sadly, Shotsie's father had addiction problems. Which, you know, he had a hard upbringing, and it was probably a result of that. You know, it felt like the safest thing was to bring and raise my children on my own. Not for any other reason than the addiction, you know.
Keep him away from that?
Yeah, I want my children to have wholesome and good values.
So, at some point, did you have a concern about Shotsie's mental health?
Well, Shotsie didn't always cope with school very well. There was, throughout his education, there was always a question mark over educational mental health issues.
Okay.
That was a struggle for him.
Now, during this time, was he really, and all of this time, is he close with his family, with you?
Always.
And,
yeah, we were really close. You know,
the 3 of you, right?
There's only 3 of us. You know, but we're a very close family. We're always very caring.
And you said that he had some issues in school, this and that. Was there ever any formal diagnosis of like bipolar or anything, ma'am?
Eventually, he had a diagnosis for neurodivergence. He's got we did have like an assessment done, and I have the paperwork for that, where they were trying to work out, because there were some issues, and they were trying to work out exactly what they were. He had some autistic spectrum issues, but he didn't have enough to make a classic diagnosis. And he also had some elements from dyspraxia, but didn't have enough to make a full diagnosis. And he had some elements of dyslexia, but didn't have enough to make a full diagnosis. And he had some elements of ADHD, but he didn't have enough to make a full diagnosis. And in the end, that was in his high school years, later high school years. And in the end, I took all the paperwork to the high school, but because they couldn't properly define exactly a classic diagnosis, they found it difficult to work out exactly how to meet Shotsie's needs.
So there wasn't an exact treatment regimen, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So you've heard the testimony this morning, correct?
Yeah.
That you've been here. So obviously this borderline personality disorder with dissociative spells that the doctor testified to, is this the first time you're hearing of something like this?
Oh, yeah, more or less. I mean, the only other information that I've had is sadly with what's happened and with the distance, because I wasn't here, and I've only been able to visit twice. And so the last time I came to visit, I gathered what I could of Shotsie's things together. And in those things, there was a matter of all sorts of paperwork that I went through, and it gave me some idea, because I hadn't been aware properly of what had been going on.
Now,
and it gave me some idea. There was some medical paperwork in there, and his financial paperwork, and all sorts of things.
okay. Now, you said that the 3 of you, he, and Josiah, were very close.
That's correct, yeah.
Now, when he moved to America, did he have any family here?
Did he?
Did he have any family here?
No.
Did he have any relationships outside of Mary Alice?
No.
Okay. So he was here by himself.
He was here by himself.
During that time, did he remain close with you?
We spoke daily. He even if it was a short hello, all the way up to kind of September time.
September of 2025? I would assume
It
you're not
was the
talking.
election, it was the
or
election year.
2024.
It was the election year.
Okay, so September of 2024.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then I checked, because I've obviously been trying to work out what's happening. So like I looked back on my phone to check when our communications really became much less, and that was the November. And then it was kind of a bit sporadic from then.
Okay. So you were, was that a concern for you?
Absolutely a major concern.
Now, you're here today, but obviously you don't live here in the United States, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right. Where do you live, ma'am?
I live in a place called North Devon,
Okay.
which is in the UK in England.
All right.
It's on the southwest coast.
All right. And your son Josiah lives with you, correct?
He doesn't live with me actually, we live separately.
Oh, but he lives in the same area,
Yeah,
correct?
he's old enough to be living separately.
Sure.
But we live in the same
Same
area.
area.
He lives around about maybe 15 miles from me,
Okay.
but that's not that far by car, you know.
Right. And so, you've traveled here for today's hearing, and obviously, how many times were you able to travel during the time that Shotsie was here?
I just couldn't, you know, the only way I've been able to get here, and I've come twice now, and it's cost me a fortune. I don't have that money. I've had to borrow money. I've had people give me money, like my mum. You know, I've got a mum, but she's in London, so she doesn't live near us. And then there's been I'm a Christian churchgoer, and I've had the odd person from my church give me money. Last time I had a couple of people give me a couple of £100, and this time I had a friend that I haven't even seen for a long time message me, I want to give you something to help you.
So it's been a struggle to make it over here and even to participate in these proceedings.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Now I'm going to shift questioning a bit. Have you ever personally observed Shotsie in a mental health crisis?
Yeah, not like this, but yes, he has had. There has been he has had mental illness before.
And how many times have you observed a period where he wasn't acting like himself?
Not like this.
Now, was he on
had-
medication? You said not like this. Was he on medication?
No, I think there was one time prior to this where he was offered some medication and we talked it over. I supported him. He didn't need the medication. We moved on. He was all right.
Okay. And so, have you ever observed periods of paranoia or
No.
delusional thinking or anything of that nature?
No.
So, prior to any of this, none of that. Have you observed periods of depression that Shotsie's had?
Absolutely, yeah. He has had depression before.
Okay. But never took anything for that?
In his high school years, he was given antidepressant.
Okay.
He had some counselling. He was given antidepressant. He did have depression as a teenager.
How long did he take that antidepressant?
I can't tell you. It was a matter of months. It might have been like 6 months or something.
Was there any adverse side effects that you recall?
I don't think so, but it was, you know, all medications are different, aren't they?
Sure.
I don't think so.
Do you know what that medication was?
Yeah, I do. I can't be 100% sure.
That's fine.
Sorry, I forgot.
No, that's fine. And you said
It
he only...
wasn't the ones he's on now.
Right.
I can't
Well, you said that he was on it for a couple of months, is that right?
I think it might have been as much as 6 months.
Right. Why did he stop taking that?
Because we went through it and he got well.
And prior to this incident that we're here for today, had you had any contact with Shotsie directly before this incident?
Yeah, I did.
All right. And did you have some concerns with your communication at that time?
I'm trying to think of the communication because I messaged him to see if he was all right, and he said he wasn't. And yes, I was concerned about that.
Did you call police or hospitals or anything?
Do you know, throughout that last year, I considered calling the police because at one point I didn't even know where my son was. I felt like I didn't even know where he was or who he was with because he was homeless and I couldn't locate him. And I was really, really concerned. And I thought about calling the police, but eventually I'd get a little amount of response from Mary Alice's family that assured me that he was kind of okay, he was kind of okay or something. So when I was trying to reason what was the best thing to do, I thought if I was to contact the police, is there a crime happening? No. Do you know what I mean? I thought that they were more than likely to say, you know, if you, without there being anything happening, if you contact the police, they're going to say to you, oh, why are you worried? Why do you want us to go and have a look? Or why? And quite often, it's not a police issue until something's happening. And that was the way I had weighed it up. I didn't know enough to know there would be any very serious. Obviously, if I had felt there was anything very serious happening, without a doubt I would have called the police, but I didn't have any proper information. I didn't have enough information to make a choice like that.
And if you'd had the money, you would come and
Absolutely would. And I looked at it and I'd actually browsed how am I going to get there. And do you know what? I had various other things that were drawing on my finances that time. Every time I got to about £400, something occurred. I had a cat dying, I had dental treatment I had to have, do you know what I mean? And that would take my resource. And so I'd be saving to come, and then my savings would just be eaten up by something. I just couldn't get here, and I even actually reached out. I looked on the internet for solutions. I looked for churches in the area because I thought if I connected to a church in this area in Danville, maybe they could find somebody who could put me up in a room. And I contacted Compassion Church by messenger. I sent them a message saying, look, I know you don't know who I am. I think my son's in trouble in Danville. I need to get there. I need somewhere to stay. Could you ask your church? I can get references. That's pretty much the reference I gave. That's pretty much the message I gave them. And they didn't respond. I also appealed to Mary Alice's mother. And I said to her, look, I really need to get over there. I realise that there's a relationship problem going on at the moment. So if you can't put me up, surely you can find somebody to put me up, because it would have made it possible for me to get a flight and not have to pay for accommodation. Nobody would help me. I reached out a lot.
Now, ma'am, well, Shotsie was growing up and prior to his move to the United States. Had you ever observed any outbursts of violent behavior from Shotsie?
No.
Has he had any of these type of issues, assault with anyone?
No.
Okay. Would you ever even fathom that something like this was going to happen?
No, I was absolutely astounded. Absolutely astounded. I didn't know what to do about that.
Have you
took my
talked?
breath away.
Now, have you talked to Shotsie after the incident?
Yeah.
Okay. You guys still remain in close communication?
We're in closer communications now than we have been for the last year. I mean, not the last year in jail. I mean, before the incident, we're in daily communications now, and occasionally more than once in a day.
How would you describe his demeanor since that time?
He's been very, very unwell. You know, in the first instance of our communications after this, he was very unwell. He was unable to think clearly. He was not himself. I mean, to be honest, he's still not quite himself.
Well, and that's what my question was. After the incident, how has his mental health been since then?
Dreadful. He doesn't sound like my son so much, and he doesn't look like my son so much.
Do you believe in his rehabilitation?
Absolutely. Yeah, I know that inside Shotsie, there is a good, caring person, and that is what I know Shotsie to be. That's my experience of Shotsie in my life.
And you and Josiah would obviously be supporting him through any treatment that the court recommends or any type of
We
incarceration?
would prioritise that, and we would literally drop anything else that we needed to do that. And believe me, we may not have a lot of finances, but we have a lot of love, and when things are important, we pull together.
If you were here during this time period of this incident took place, do you think this incident would have happened?
Objection, Judge, that calls for speculation.
I'll withdraw the question. I will rephrase. If you were here during this time, what actions would you have taken to make sure that something like this didn't happen?
The sort of things I even considered at distance, because I was thinking, do I need to go? Do I need to arrange some sort of accommodation at some point? And I would have actually brought Shotsie away from the situation that was difficult, and I would have made a meal for us, you know, and made it a family time, and gave him an opportunity to talk about his issues, and looked after him a bit, and hopefully restored him to a sound place.
Is there anything else you want the court to know about your son, Shotsie Buck-Hayes?
Yeah, I do.
Tell the court.
I would just like to appeal to you on Shotsie's behalf that this is very unusual behaviour, and that Shotsie has always been the sort of person that will look at somebody else who is in difficulty and do his utmost to help them. He has got empathy, and he has got goodwill inside of him. This is unusual, and I really believe that it's an isolated incident. And we're all very sorry. We are all very sorry that this has happened. I would never ever want anybody to be hurt in this way.
Ma'am, those are all my questions. Please answer any questions that Mr. Mitchell may have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Judge, I'm gonna call Mr. Buck-Hayes.
All right, sir, if you'll take the witness stand, and you start.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you give in the case now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
State your name for the record.
My name is Shotsie Buck-Hayes.
All right, Shotsie, I want to take you back to when all this was occurring. If you could just go back, right now at this moment, what would you do differently?
The primary thing that I would have done differently is block my wife. We were going through difficulty, and we had a very extreme history. But I did everything to try and fix my marriage. But blocking my wife would have been a much better way of going about things.
So would you agree that if you both maybe just ripped it off like a Band-Aid and moved forward different directions, that would have been the best thing to do?
Yeah, absolutely, but we were both hanging on because we had needed each other.
Now, you said you were both hanging on. Were you still seeing Mary Alice all the way up to the week of this incident?
All the way up to the week of this incident, yeah.
Were you, was she coming over to your place? Were you going over her place? What was
I
going on?
was never going over to where she was, and she was ringing me, but I wasn't ringing her because she'd asked me not to.
All right, but she was coming to where you were staying.
She was coming, and we were sexually active.
So you were still in a sexual relationship, still talking all the way up to the week before?
The divorce was, it wasn't the end of our relationship. She said she needed the freedom to choose, so she wanted to be divorced. But
Now, your marriage with Mary Alice, did it have issues?
yeah. I think all marriages have issues, Should I go into detail?
Well, so besides anything to do with Mr. Vogler, you already had some issues going on in your marriage.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
All right, now, is it fair to say you were trying very hard to fix your marriage, even right to the end?
I had got rid of, I would say, all my bad habits apart from smoking cigarettes. I had replaced all my bad habits with good habits. I was making her gifts physically. I learned how to crochet. I learned how to weld in order to give her things to show my appreciation for her. I had been working really hard at my career. She said that she wanted, I said to her way back along when I was working at Midtown Market, I said, is there one thing that you would like in your life that I can work towards as our goal? She said, I want to live in a house with a grand staircase. So I quit my job at Midtown to work in construction so I could build her this thing, but that wasn't gonna be enough. So I stopped working in construction and I started teaching again, because I used to teach.
So let's back up a little bit though. We'll get into that, but, so you had some things going on with your marriage, and then, I don't want you to go into what anybody else had said, but was there a time that you came aware that there was an affair going on?
Yeah.
All right, was there a time at Food Lion that you became aware of this affair?
Yeah, it was something that I had noticed that when we were out with the Voglers, Mary Alice and Lee had been uncomfortably close. Should I go into detail about what happened to Food Lion?
You can talk about what happened, yes.
Okay, so we were at an event called Shrimp Fest, and it was a community market, and as the evening was closing out, Blair and Lee said we would like to do an after party and go to the model's house, to their pool. And on the way, we went to Grove Park Food Lion to get beers. He got straight out of the car and went to the restaurant, and me, Blair, and my wife went into the beer aisle, and we hung about there for 5 minutes waiting for Lee, and then my wife said, I need to use the restroom. So she went to use the restroom. Me and Blair waited for another couple of minutes. Blair said...
Don't go into what Blair said. After a conversation with Blair, what did you do?
After the conversation with Blair, I went to see if they were together in the bathroom at her suggestion.
What did you see when you went towards the bathroom?
They were in an embrace, but I don't know if they were kissing or hugging. I just saw they were in an embrace.
I know, in an embrace, is that what you said?
Yeah, they were really on top of each other.
All right, now, did you confront them about this there?
Yeah, I went straight. I threw the beers at the floor and I walked straight towards the toilet, and Lee ran into the toilet and he started urinating, which is significant because he was going to the restroom first, but he needed to wait. He needed to urinate because he really wasn't going to the restroom to use the restroom. He was going there to meet my wife.
Okay, now, when you confronted them, when this was going on, did you flip out? Did you?
I was level 10 upset. But
now, while level 10 upset, did you strike Lee? Did you do anything to Lee?
No, I said, you have no idea how much harder it is for me to walk away right now.
But you did walk away, correct?
That's exactly what I did, yeah.
All right, now, after that event, you and Mary Alice continued to have problems, correct?
Yeah.
And now, is it fair to say that the problems were worsened by an affair going on?
100%.
Now, this is before the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when this continues, did you feel your mental health getting worse?
100%. I was doing better than I was doing, but I was putting more effort in than I had ever put in before into my character and achieving things in order to save my marriage. But I've never been in a worse mental state than when this was going on. And
Now,
I think
did you seek help?
Yeah, when I had the insight to the fact that I was ill, I went to Danville, Pennsylvania Community Service Board, and they did their best to help me, but the counselor I had quit his job. And so, although I was still in communication with them, it wasn't as frequent as when I had a designated counselor.
Now, at some point, did you go to Virginia Baptist?
Yeah.
All right, did you feel that was helpful?
Virginia Baptist was the best thing that has ever happened to me. They helped me realize, I'll just tell you about one thing that made a world of difference to me. It's called LEAP, and it's listening, empathizing, listening, empathizing, agreeing, and sorry, I can't remember the last thing, but it helped me to understand relationships. That I knew how to, it taught me how to listen to my wife better. I've always felt like it's been my fault that my wife cheated on me.
Okay. When you got done there and you got out, did you actually readmit yourself somewhere else?
Yeah, I knew I was going into crisis camp, so I went to the General Pennsylvania Community Service, and they sent me to the crisis team, and then they took me to Sober Hospital.
Okay. After that, I want to go back to your mental health, just outside of where you were getting help. Did you separate yourself from everybody?
Yeah, because my wife said to me that.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Don't go into what your wife said to you. Just the question is, did you separate yourself from everybody?
Yeah, I cut everybody off.
All right, now, was that because you were trying to focus on your marriage?
Yeah.
All right. Now, looking back, do you think that was a smart decision?
No.
All right, now, what else was going on with you at that time before this incident took place? Like, how much were you working?
I was working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I was trying to cope with, I was trying to work through my loss, and I was trying to make money enough that would get my marriage back on track, and I was trying to do something ethical. I was teaching children that had been involved in crime.
Where was that at?
It was Echo Connects in Yanceyville.
All right, and what were you doing? What were you doing there exactly?
I was a teacher counselor, but I had a lot of room to do what I thought was right. So I taught them extracurricular stuff like music. I was teaching them how to be physically fit, and I bought weights for their. I brought in equipment for pretty much everything that I was teaching them. I was teaching them music, and I brought in guitar, and I brought in a speaker, and I brought in microphones for them to offload in that way. I was teaching them coping mechanisms.
Now, did you enjoy doing that kind of work?
It was the best work of my life.
Now, over in the UK before you came over here, did you also teach kids stuff?
Yeah, I was teaching children bushcraft, how to use knife.
And where did you do that?
ESCO education.
Okay. So another similar kind of situation.
No, the children that I was teaching at ESCO were much younger.
Okay.
And the people that I was teaching at ECHO were 13 to 17 years old.
Okay. Now, there's no denying that what happened happened. You took responsibility, you pled guilty here. If you could say one thing, or if you could just say anything to Lee and his family, what comes out when you think of that?
You didn't deserve what has happened to you, and I couldn't be more sorry. Really, from the pit of my heart, I don't know the ins and outs of everything that you've had to go through, and I never will. And I can still empathise with what's happened, and I'm very sorry.
Now, moving past it, which I don't think anybody disagrees, nobody's gonna move past it completely, but how are you now on the new medication that you're on currently?
It works a lot better for me. I mean, I haven't had panic attacks while I've been on new medication, which is a big deal to me.
Do you feel more stable?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, obviously you're locked up in a jail, so obviously there's probably some depression there, but overall, do you feel, I don't want to say normal, but no more yourself compared to right before this?
I feel like I can distinguish a more sustainable way of being at where I should be at my best. I can do that in a more controlled way rather than in a manic way.
So, what are your plans moving forward?
Depending on what happens.
I understand that, but if the court, whatever the sentence is, when you get out, what would your plan be getting out?
What would my plan be?
Once you're released, what are things you would want to do?
If I was able to, which I think that I could find a way to, even if it wasn't in direct contact with children, I would like to go back to helping specifically teenagers become sustainable and enthusiastic adults. With Eckerd, I was putting in a lot of extra, I don't know how to word it, I was going above my call of duty, and I was designing programs for the children to become members of society that they wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do. So for example, I've been in contact with the Mayor of Milton to try and find where there was building projects, construction projects that the kids would be able to work on, so that they would be able to then find a job with relevant experience that they could develop through Connect. Or I had planned to, I contacted the international, I can't remember what it's called, the ISSA, International Sports Science Association, about getting them qualified, getting these children qualified so that they could be personal trainers, which is possibly $60,000 a year job. These children can make $3,000 a week on the street, so having them have the opportunity to make their money fairly and without risk, that would change their lives.
And that's something that you're very passionate about.
That's my passion entirely.
Now, besides work, we've talked about this countless times. What have you always just wanted in life?
I wanted a family. When I was, well, Mum said when I was 5, I thought that my dad left earlier than that. But since I was 8 years old, all I wanted was my dad. And that was, I know, that sounds really bad, but I needed a male role model, and I wanted to be that for my own kids. I knew what I knew what a gap felt like, and I wanted to fill that for my kids. I wanted to have a holistic family, and we had struggled, just me, my mum and Joe. I'd seen all the stress it put on my mum, you know, I knew I wanted to be a dad, and that's something that I felt like was taken from me. Even though that's not the case, now I can see that, but I didn't have the insight to realise that there was going to be another opportunity.
So, after your dad left, growing up, do you think you struggled with abandonment issues?
100%, yeah.
Do you think you still struggle with that?
I do struggle with it. I don't think that I'm ever not going to struggle with abandonment issues, but it's not entirely negative, because also I know how to be there for people. And I know I'm not going to abandon people, but that was kind of my problem with my wife was I couldn't let her go when she was saying to me that she wanted to repair things. That hadn't gone off the table. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say?
I think the only thing that I have to say is just what I did was devastating, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart that if there was something I could do to undo it, I would, with the entire fibre of my being. And I feel like I let my kids down in my work, because I was giving them something that they were otherwise not getting, and I've let my family down, my own family. But I also have a more sustainable way of thinking. Like, I didn't give my mum enough respect to be calling her regularly when I was going through this trouble, and now I will be looking out for my mum more. I'm never going to let another woman dictate how much I speak to my mum.
That's all my questions,
Very briefly, the event you testified in reference to at the shrimp event, that was over a year prior to this event.
I can't remember, I think it was September.
And you and your wife separated June of 2024.
But we weren't separated, we were still seeing each other.
You signed the separation agreement June of 2024, correct?
I don't remember.
Back later after that, you signed a waived notice in reference to the divorce proceedings.
A waive?
You waived notice in reference to the divorce, waived notice in reference to coming to court, the divorce was going through.
Yeah, well, she said to me that she needed the sense of freedom to decide if she wanted to be married to me or not. So yeah, we went through a divorce.
And you were aware, any kind of relationship that took place between Mary Alice and Mr. Vogler, that had been over?
No, I didn't wasn't aware of that.
She specifically told you that?
No, they were communicating through Snapchat.
Well, just because they were communicating, they were on boards and stuff together, that doesn't mean they were still having any kind of relationship, right?
Why would they be doing it on a medium that deletes text? Why was she being shady about?
And that's the issue, right? Regardless of what she's telling you, it was over or not, you've convinced yourself that you're not gonna have kids, and it was Mr. Vogler's fault, correct?
I suppose, yeah.
And that's why on this date you decided you were gonna inflict as much pain as possible on Mr. Vogler.
It wasn't really, I didn't consider.
Well, that's why you put napalm or just styrofoam in the gasoline. You specifically told the officer you wanted that to burn hotter, correct?
Something like that.
So again, you wanted to inflict as much pain as possible, because in your mind, it was all Lee's fault, but it was your wife that didn't want to leave you, right?
I don't have very much memory of the event. No.
Well, on the day of, you had great memory of it, didn't you?
Right. I don't know, yeah.
You specifically told the officer how you drove down to fill up 3 gallons of gasoline, correct?
I don't know.
You don't remember that?
No.
You don't remember going into the hallway, pacing back and forth? You don't remember not,
Judge, he's answered the question, he does not remember that day.
Huh? So he's asking a different question.
you don't here remember throwing gasoline on Lee?
No.
Well, let me ask you this. If you don't remember any of that,
I remember that I woke up. No, I was already awake. I hadn't slept that night, and my wife was ringing my phone, and I was going through something. I was really in a bad way, and I decided to pick up the phone and I said, "Hey baby, how are you?" And she just went off of me. I threw my phone on the floor, and that's where everything goes blurry.
so you're saying to this court right now you don't remember anything in reference to Light and Lee running after him or anything? Well, let me ask you this last question for you then, okay? If you can't remember any of that, how in the world should the court believe you when you say you're sorry about something you don't even remember?
I suppose that's up to you.
I have no further questions.
Any regret?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You can step down. Have a seat back with your attorneys. Any further evidence?
That's our evidence, Your Honor.
Argument from the defense?
Your Honor, people do not generally destroy their lives, their families, their futures when everything's going well. This offense occurred at the intersection of serious mental illness, a marital collapse, emotional devastation, and extraordinarily poor judgment. That doesn't excuse it in any shape or form, but it helps to explain it. The defendant, Shotsie Buck-Hayes, respectfully requests this court impose a sentence within the advisory guidelines. At the outset, the defense recognizes the extreme seriousness of the offenses before the court. Lee Vogler suffered catastrophic, life-altering injuries that nobody is trying to dispute whatsoever. Nothing presented today by the defense intends to minimize that in any way. We're not minimizing the pain and suffering by Mr. Vogler, his family, his friends, the gravity of Mr. Buck-Hayes' conduct. It's inexcusable. Mr. Buck-Hayes stands before the court having accepted responsibility for his actions. He pled guilty to attempted murder, aggravated malicious moving. He has spared the victim's family, the court, the burden of some lengthy trial that stands before this court to accept his punishment. The question before the court isn't whether punishment is warranted. That's unquestionably, it is. The question is what punishment is appropriate after considering not only the offenses, but also the offender. Virginia law recognizes that sentencing is an individualized determination. While the court must consider the seriousness of the offenses, it must also consider the unique circumstances of the defendant, his history, his culpability, his rehabilitation, the sentencing guidelines, all of this. We believe for the following reasons that it should be a sentence in these guidelines. First, one of the most significant mitigating factors before the court is Mr. Buck-Hayes' acceptance of responsibility. Right from the jump, he told the cops exactly what happened. He admitted to what he did. He admittedly, throughout this whole process, has stated that day of, he obviously remembered it in very detail. He told them every single thing he could to the best of his ability on that day. He entered plea of guilty to the offenses charged. He accepted responsibility for his actions without requiring, again, anybody to come to a trial. The victim, family, law enforcement, emergency personnel, medical providers. That would have been a very emotional, long trial. Judge, the last time we were here, he entered a guilty plea once that one charge was dropped, because he was never gonna say he was not guilty of this. This right here, he's always accept responsibility for. Accepting responsibility remains one of the strongest indicators that an offender has begun the process of rehabilitation. Unlike defendants who deny responsibility or try to shift the blame, Mr. Buck-Hayes instead acknowledges his conduct, stands before the court. He shows his empathy. The court should afford substantial weight to that. Next, the most compelling mitigating factor in this case is Mr. Buck-Hayes' extensive, well-documented history of mental illness. This isn't a diagnosis developed after the fact. This isn't a litigation-created defense. The evidence demonstrates that Mr. Buck-Hayes has been struggling with mental illness for years, and it just got worse and worse up to this offense. The court has before it extensive records documenting psychiatric treatment, psychiatric evaluations, medication management, hospitalizations, ongoing mental health intervention. Family members, friends, treating professionals all describe the same pattern that we have. A gradual but significant decline leading up to this event, and then a steep drop. The psychiatric history is real. The treatment is real. The hospitalizations are real. The diagnoses are real. Now let's go back to the fact that we are not saying in any shape that the defense suggests that mental illness excuses criminal conduct. It doesn't, whatsoever. However, sentencing requires the court to understand not merely what happened, but why it happened. And here this is a huge factor. Mental illness is directly relevant to culpability, treatment needs, future assessments, and the likelihood that the defendant can benefit from rehabilitation. The testimony presented established that Mr. Buck-Hayes suffered from a condition, it affected his judgment. He had issues with emotional regulation, perception, impulse control, the ability to cope with significant life stresses. The doctor summed up every single one of these things, and in the middle of his life, they all came at the same time. The court is not sentencing a mentally healthy individual who simply made a cold, calculated decision to commit violence. The court is sentencing an individual with a lengthy history of serious psychiatric illness whose mental health had been deteriorating and then got worse than it's ever been in his life. That distinction, again, is what matters. The evidence further established that the offenses occurred during the complete collapse of virtually every single thing that he said mattered to him. Everything. His marriage was failing. The testimony further established that Mary Alice entered into a relationship with Lee Vogler before the marriage had ended, and Mr. Buck-Hayes became aware of that relationship. He was even told about this relationship. It was surrounding him. Again, the defense does not present these facts as an excuse, but just an explanation. Infidelity does not justify violence. It doesn't justify any of this. But knowing about this explains it. It's not aimed to diminish the seriousness, but just give an understanding. However, those facts, again, are still relevant in which how this whole scenario played out. It demonstrates that Mr. Buck-Hayes became increasingly consumed by the loss of this marriage, the loss of his family. He wasn't communicating with anybody. The responsibility between his wife and the relationship between his wife and Mr. Vogler. Every witness testified that they saw this at the exact same time, and this is what was going on. Maybe for a mentally healthy individual, the collapse of marriage, discovery of an affair after already failing marriage, person not suffering, this would have been bad. But for a person already suffering significantly with mental illness, those same events can become so overwhelming, such emotional stressors, that will then worsen existing mental health conditions, would contribute to the most awful judgment, irrational thinking, and destructive behavior. That's what we had here. The evidence established that this offense arose from a highly personal, emotionally charged conflict, rather than some predatory, random, indiscriminate violence. This wasn't gang violence. This was not violence motivated by some financial gain. This was not a serial offender targeting multiple victims. This was not an attack upon strangers selected at random. Rather, it establishes a man with no criminal history committing an isolated offense that arose from a unique set of circumstances involving a deteriorating mental condition. When it comes to rehabilitation, it's worth noting that Mr. Buck-Hayes was only 29 at the time of this offense. Courts have long recognized that younger offenders have a greater capacity for rehabilitation, personal growth, and change. The court is sentencing a relatively young man who still poses a capacity to benefit from good treatment, correctional program, maturity, and the passage of time. The testimony presented by family members, friends, mental health professionals, all establish he's not beyond rehabilitation. The mental health professionals testified that the treatment exists. Diagnoses are genuine. Further treatment could reduce future risk. Rehabilitation remains possible. Leading up to this, one of the biggest things that they've all testified about is the lack of communication from family. He wasn't keeping them in the loop. He wasn't able to talk to them. His mom has stated, and he stated, that will never happen again. If she has to move here, she'll move here. There is never going to be a time when he's away from his family again. This close 3-person unit. The court doesn't have to choose between punishment and public safety. I say that because the guidelines, they accomplish both these objectives. The advisory guidelines in this case were designed to already account for the seriousness of the offense, the nature of the victim's injuries, the offender's criminal history, and the aggravating factors associated with these convictions. The guideline sentence protects the public, imposes substantial punishment, and holds Mr. Buck-Hayes accountable, as he should be. And it also recognizes the ability for future rehabilitation. Lastly, Your Honor, there's no doubt the court is faced with a very difficult sentencing decision involving undeniably serious offenses and devastating injuries. We're not trying to say anything, but they are devastating injuries. However, sentencing again requires the consideration of not only the offense, but also the offender. To recap, he accepted responsibility through guilty pleas. He poses, substantial documented history of mental health. He was young at the time of the offense. He retains capacity for rehabilitation. It further demonstrates that these offenses occurred during this awful psychiatric break in his life. There's no doubt this led to extremely poor judgment and awful circumstances. The evidence presented today does not describe a predator. It does describe a man who spent his life, victimizing others or targeting people. It's a mentally ill individual at this time that was unraveling. Shotsie said himself, if he could take it all back, he would. He wishes none of this happened. He shows remorse, empathy for his actions, and he's now on medication that is working well, and he has plans for the future to help others, like he's been doing his whole life. He worked with kids in the UK. He worked with kids here. He's always trying to get back what he never had, and that's a family unit. This is not the Shotsie that every single person here testified to. This isn't the Shotsie that these people know. This is Shotsie during the most awful, tragic time in his life. We are respectfully asking the court to sentence him within the recommended guidelines provided. This would hold him accountable for his actions and also give a young man another chance. A chance is the only thing that Shotsie is so desperately trying to have. It's a family. That's all.
Judge, again, I don't see how the defendant's coming before your honor saying, hey, I'm showing empathy. I'm asking the court to say, I'm sorry, and in the same breath indicate, I don't remember what I did. Throughout the hearing today, this first address has any mental issues. Judge, he was not going through any dissociation on that day. He was very clear. He knew exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to kill Lee Vogler. Even though any kind of events with his wife was in the past. That's the evidence, it's a summary of evidence before Your Honor, that was in the past. And it broke it off, it ended. He was on the phone with Mary Alice that morning, had nothing to do with Lee. Had everything to do with the fact that she was going to go through with the divorce. And as he told the officers, well, he wanted a family, as he indicated here today. For some reason, he believed, well, Lee was the issue as towards that helped my divorce, even though today he admits there's other issues that helped the divorce also. But, you know, curiously, he didn't take any responsibility on July 30th for the issues he may have created in his divorce. He didn't take any responsibility for himself in reference to that. No, instead, as he told the officer, I was just angry. I was angry. This has nothing to do with being disassociated. This has everything to do with just outright revenge. He blamed Mr. Vogler for everything, and he was going to take his pound of flesh. Now, throughout some of this, we've heard, you know, the defense counsel asked, you know, the wife of Mr. Vogler a reference to this there. They indicated through Mr. Hayes as towards his remembrance of everything. I still picture the picture I put up for the court and showed Mr. Vogler there on the street, literally burning. The people that day was going by stopped, poured some water on Lee, tried to help. You know what they didn't care about at that time? They didn't care about his politics. Didn't care about his personal life. They saw another human being literally being burned to death. And they did what they could to help that human being. This has nothing to do with an affair. This has nothing to do with reference to life. This has everything to do with the defendant being so angry that he literally wanted to take the life of another human being. And regardless of the reasons they try to indicate, well, we're not saying this is justified, however, these are the reasons. None of that not only justifies or should be used in reference to mitigate in any way, shape, or form the sentence that he deserves. This was straight out revenge, Judge. He wanted to burn alive the person he blamed for his life. And Judge, I know we're here for attempted murder, not murder. He should have got no credit to the fact that Lee didn't die. Because he tried his best to do it. He even put styrofoam on there because he wanted to burn longer. But for those citizens that stopped and poured water for him, the officers were able, the first responders, to get Lee to the hospital, Lee himself, who fought, his family, the doctors at the burn center, those are the heroes. He doesn't deserve any credit for that. Judge, the victim, his family, they're going to have scars the rest of their lives, physically, emotionally, psychologically. They'll never heal. It's hard pressed to find a case where it is crystal clear someone went out of their way to kill someone else. We've had cases where people just pull guns at the last minute and decide, I'm going to pull the trigger. That's first-degree murder. Doesn't mean pulling the trigger. He had to go by his residence, as we pointed out, was right next to where Lee was. He wasn't so hot and bothered he ran straight to that location to take care of Lee. No, he had to drive by that location, go to the gas station, fill that tank 3 gallons up, go back to the office, get in there, not only pour gas on him, had to run around chasing Lee to making sure he got to Lee, outside, and lit him on fire. Put styrofoam on to make sure it burned hotter. That's one of the most clear case of a specific intent to kill someone that you're gonna find. And it's not as easy as defense counsel would have you have say, well, he's learned his lessons, let's move on. Judge, the defendant may have been the nicest person in the world prior to July 30th. But his actions that day of this horrific event, his specific intent to kill another human being, his specific intent to make sure I want it to be as painful as possible. Can you think of a worse way to kill someone? Just to burn them? In the middle of Main Street, in the middle of the day, in our city, we have a gentleman deciding, I'm going to burn someone alive. That is so horrific. I'm not asking you to sentence him in reference to again, he may have been the nicest person prior to this day, but that act that day, that screams for you to go over the guidelines. Just as I indicated, Lee and his family, they've received a life sentence. Life sentence of pain, life sentence of trauma, emotional. Quite candidly, the defense deserves the same thing.
All right, Mr. Buck-Hayes, if you'll stand, please. So before the court imposes sentence, is there any statement you would like to make or advance the reason why the court should not impose sentence at this time? Well, a lot has been said today by witnesses, by the attorneys, and I'm not prepared to go through all of it, but there are some things I think the court needs to point out. First is guidelines. Guidelines call for a range of 5 years, 8 months to 12 years, 8 months, with a midpoint of 10 years and 7 months. When these guidelines were initially adopted in 1995, they were done so under the auspices of desiring, as a state, to promote uniformity amongst sentences, to ensure greater fairness across the board, and at the same time to ensure that individuals were appropriately punished for serious crimes. In that time frame, they looked at historical sentences, they looked at certain types of offenses that the state decided needed to be enhanced, and that was what initially launched these guidelines after parole was abolished in 1995. At the same time, the state, the Sentencing Commission, has always, I mean always, recognized that courts may and should depart from the guidelines in appropriate circumstances. Compliance with the Virginia guidelines is not legislatively mandated and does not impede a trial court's authority to sentence outside the guidelines if, because of aggravating or mitigating circumstances, a judge wishes to do so. When you look at page C of the guidelines and you understand the guidelines, as I know counsel does and the court does, you get a number which sometimes seems like it's pulled out of thin air, assigned for the offense. You get other numbers assigned based on various circumstances, and obviously it goes without saying that Mr. Buck-Hayes benefits on the guidelines from the fact that he has no prior criminal history. That's something the court can consider and should consider in any case. But the guidelines do not, cannot, and were not ever designed to apply to all factual scenarios, and they cannot and do not apply to this factual scenario. Had the defendant's desire been fulfilled, as a for instance, and he was successful in killing Mr. Vogler, other sentencing guidelines would have been prepared. 22 years, 11 months to 38 years, 3 months, with a midpoint of 30 years and 7 months would be the guidelines for a completed first-degree murder. In the most obvious way, he was not successful in doing that. But in so many substantive ways, he has been successful in doing that. The sheer terror visited upon Mr. Vogler and his family as a result of your actions is unfathomable. Whatever disputes that might exist, real or perceived, between two individuals can never, ever be relied upon to justify or support the torture and intended death to be visited upon one human being from another. Is it apparent that Mr. Buck-Hayes has mental illness? Absolutely. It is well documented, and it is serious. Was he distraught over the dissolution of his marriage? Unquestioned. Can we, as a society, embrace the notion that you can not only kill a perceived romantic rival, but to do so in an especially heinous and cruel way? No. Rehabilitation is a factor that the court considers in sentencings as a matter of course, but it is also a factor that can be forfeited by your conduct. A question arose earlier in, I believe it was Dr. Cogble's testimony about facts in the law, not on innuendo, not on speculation, not on irrelevant factors. And the facts of this case represent a pinnacle in human cruelty. We as a community, the Danville community, of which I've been a member for 32 years, must make a clear and unequivocal statement about the nature and extent of your actions and the incredible harm that was thrust upon not only Mr. Vogler, but his family, his friends, the bystanders who witnessed and helped assist him in this horrific event, and the community at large. We have been in the spotlight recently because of a lot of positive things that have happened in this community and continue to happen. Sadly, this case put a different perspective or a different spotlight on our community, but it is one that I hope the court's actions will extinguish in this circumstance. The court is going to impose a sentence of life imprisonment for aggravated malicious wounding, 10 years imprisonment for attempted first-degree murder. The court will suspend 5 years of the 10-year sentence and all but 35 years of the life sentence. You'll serve 40 years in the penitentiary. Upon release, you'll be placed on probation for the maximum period of time the court can grant, which is 5 years. You'll be required to be of good behavior for the remainder of your life. As a special condition of good behavior, you may not have any contact with the victim, Mr. Vogler, or any member of his family in any way, shape, or form. Your attorneys may advise you of any rights that you have to appeal. Sheriff, I'd like you to contact the Department of Corrections and arrange for his transfer to the penitentiary as soon as possible.